going to introduce our panelists. I ask that you hold the applause till I complete the introductions. Delighted to tell you that Dianne Craig is here. Dianne is President and CEO of Ford Motor Company of Canada, position she was appointed to in November of 2011. She leads Ford of Canada's operations across the country, including national headquarters, 3 regional offices, 2 branch offices, 3 vehicle assembly plants, and engine manufacturing plants, and 2 parts distribution centers. Whoa. From 2009 to 2011, Dianne was the general manager for Ford's Southeast U.S. market, where she was responsible for all marketing, sales, and service operations for 520 Ford and Ford Lincoln's dealers. So welcome, Dianne. Andrea Gertz. Andrea is Chief Communications and Sustainability Officer for TELUS Corporation. She comes to us from Calgary today. She's telecommunications leader with over 25 years of experience in finance, business development, communications, and corporate strategy. Iain Klugman. Iain is the President and CEO of Communitech, where he's overall responsibility for operations of the organization. Previously, Iain was the CEO of a provincial Crown Corporation, Executive Director Communications with the CBC, Director of Global Branding and Advertising for Nortel, and held numerous roles with the Privy Council Office in Industry Canada. John Baker. John is the President and CEO of Desire to Learn Incorporated. John found D2L at 22 while attending the University of Waterloo as a systems design engineering student. John was a Waterloo Region Top 40 Under 40 award recipient in 2009 and was inducted into the Waterloo Region Hall of Fame as an intrepid entrepreneur that same year. So let's hear it for our panel. So I'm going to ask Dianne to start first, and she's going to look at how we can better champion Ontario's value proposition. Dianne, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. First, I'd just like to tell a little bit about our One Ford story, if I may.
Yes, please.
Hopefully we have enough time because it's such an exciting story. The auto industry, as many of you know, has gone through a really, really challenging, I'd say, decade, and it's really nice to be in a position to be up here now and talk about the health of the Ford Motor Company because of the challenges that we went through. But it wasn't that long ago, and we can never lose sight of the challenges that we did go through, particularly in the U.S. And it was back in 2006 when our new CEO, Alan Mulally, came to Ford. And at the time, the company was in crisis. Actually, in 2006, we lost $12.7 billion. So it was a tough time for Ford. It was a tough time for our industry. And that was actually before the collapse happened in the U.S. with Lehman Brothers in 2008. But we came up with our One Ford plan, and we restructured the business. It was very, very challenging. As you know, we had to close many assembly plants. In fact, there was a few here in Canada, 21 in North America, and we had 157,000 employees that left the company. So it was a tough time. But the good thing is all that restructuring wasn't for naught, and our company's in a much healthier position today. During that crisis, we had to take out our wonderful home improvement loan that you might have heard about, and $23 billion loan that we had to take out to invest in the business. And certainly what the outcome was wonderful product to showroom that we had today, but it was really, really vital that we did that, and we were really proud that we did it on our own. And we had to change the culture of the company. So when you fast forward, certainly doesn't seem like it was that long ago. Nearly 8 years later, the company's in a much better place. And certainly in Canada, we're really, really proud of our operations that we have here. We're the oldest automaker in Canada, 110 years old, and we assemble wonderful both vehicles and engines in Canada, and we've been the best-selling brand now going on 5 years, but it is something that we never take for granted, and we're certainly really, really humbled by. So good time for our company, and certainly we're really proud of our assembly plants that we have in Canada. We have our Oakville assembly plant, which today exports 90% of the vehicles that come out of Canada actually go to countries all over the globe. And actually, of the 225,000 vehicles we build out of Oakville, There's 40,000 that actually go outside of North America. So we're really proud of our Oakville assembly operations, and of course it was just a year ago we announced a $700 million investment in Oakville. And today we'll have 4,000, by the end of the year we'll have 4,000 Canadians working at our plant, which we're really excited about. So it gets back to how do we innovate in Canada, I'll speak to that in a minute. And we're also really proud of our Essex operations, which in 2008 was the only plant in North America that reopened, and today employs over 800 Canadians that build our engines for our F-150 and Mustang. So it's a great time for our company. We're really, really proud of the place we're in, but you have to constantly innovate. And it comes to Ontario, and what can we do in Ontario? And I think the most important point, especially for Oakville, is that we basically showed a year ago that Canada can compete in a global economy. And certainly from an investment standpoint, which is really the center of what we're talking about today, and how do you attract incentives, right, and attract the investments, it's so critical to our sector. And like I said, Oakville was just a fabulous example of showing that we can compete in the global playing field, but a lot of factors have to come together to do so.
Thank you. Thanks, Diane. What we're going to do now is that we're going to ask Andrea Gertz, who will look at how we can utilize technology to increase productivity.
Thank you, Annette, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about how businesses, large and small, can contribute to enabling productivity through technology. It's exciting to hear how we can leverage technology from coast to coast to coast. And before I get down to some of the details on how TELUS technology has improved productivity and improved our lives, I want to give you a quick overview of how TELUS is supporting innovation and Ontario's transformation to a digital economy. We've committed to investing $1.1 billion through 2016 to expand our wireless and fiber optic infrastructure so as to continue providing Ontarians, businesses, and provincial government with the technologically advanced communication services they need to stay connected and competitive. In fact, by the end of 2016, TELUS will have invested over $36 billion in Ontario. We're proud of the contributions we have made to the province's economy, and we have some very clear ideas on what our technology can do to impact productivity. For example, the healthcare technology that we offer through TELUS Health Solutions, such as remote patient monitoring, is increasing the productivity of medical practitioners and patients. Where once a physician could see 20 patients in her office each week, she can now see 120 each day. And for patients, that same technology is reducing emergency room visits by up to 40%. But as Annette mentioned, one of my central roles at TELUS is as Chief Sustainability Officer, so I will focus my comments in the opening here just on one example, on a technology that supports both our strategic imperative to increase efficiencies and productivity and our commitment to fostering greener and more sustainable communities across Canada. Almost a decade ago, we began working on a real estate consolidation strategy. We had buildings scattered around the country, and as we began looking at consolidating our holdings, we learned that 80% of our carbon footprint derived from these buildings, which truly gave us pause. We decided to work toward LEED Gold or higher in all of our new and retrofitted real estate assets across Canada. In fact, TELUS is currently the largest leaseholder of LEED Platinum space in North America, with Platinum certified properties in Toronto and under development in Vancouver and in Calgary. Around the same time that we were focusing on making our buildings more sustainable, technology was emerging that would redefine where and how we could work. VPN and video conferencing, early incarnations of what would become our smartphones. Throughout the process, we realized that not only did we need to adapt our workplaces, but we needed to adapt our approach to work. Out of this thinking in 2006, we came up with Work Styles, a flexible working program that provides our team with the training and technology to work where and how they are most productive. To support our mobile team, we equip them with technology like smartphones, tablets, and internet sticks. Everyone's given access to collaboration tools such as telepresence, our super high-definition video conferencing system, now in 19 TELUS locations across Canada, instant messaging and document sharing, as well as cloud-based applications and storage accessible from any device. Today, on any given workday, 60% of our team members in major centers are working outside of our TELUS office locations, and we are on track to meet our goal of 70% by 2015. Through this program, we've realized some impressive benefits. Firstly, at the organizational level, we've reduced our real estate footprint by more than 1 million square feet. That translates into $50 million annually. And by investing in collaborative technology, TELUS has cut travel costs by more than $14 million annually and achieved a 22% reduction in carbon emissions. These savings have been reinvested into the organization for the betterment of our customers, for CapEx costs like spectrum purchases, and our ongoing upgrades to our network. Secondly, at the employee level, the program has played a key role in attracting and retaining top talent. We recently completed a year-long study in conjunction with the Richard Ivey School at the University of Western Ontario and found that an astounding 100% of mobile and at-home workers were considered low risk of leaving TELUS. Low risk because of the loyalty engendered by this program. Also, since WorkStyle's implementation in 2006, TELUS has seen its employee engagement scores rise from 53% to 83%. That is the highest score worldwide for a company of our size and workforce mix, according to global HR organization Aon Hewitt. These increased levels of employee engagement are passed on to our customers by means of exceptional customer interactions, which in turn supports our top corporate priority of being the most recommended company in the markets we serve. WorkStyles and the technology that supports it has had a monumental impact on our organization, and this includes productivity. One of the major concerns of any organization considering a telecommuting policy is that employee productivity will diminish. We found the opposite. In that same TELUS Ivey study I cited earlier, researchers found that our team members working remotely or at home were getting just as much done as their in-office peers, and as I mentioned earlier, the engagement scores indicate that they are much happier. Now, with 7 years of experience championing a flexible work program, including battle testing our program during the Olympics and the Southern Alberta floods, we are working with other organizations looking to shift into a flexible work model and transform their cultures through best practices in engagement and technology. From the printing press to the steam engine to electricity to the extraordinary innovations we are witnessing during our lifetime, technology has the power to drive productivity. But implementing these new technologies often requires an organization to step into unfamiliar territory. To be successful and to realize organizational benefits, an organization's leaders must be committed to driving large-scale cultural shift. And in many cases, in the environment that we're living in, to simply embrace the momentum of technological change and be excited about all the new things, all the cool things that we can do. There's behaviors to change, management styles to reshape, and new cultural norms to establish. And when embraced by leaders and supported by the right technology, programs like WorkStyles offer tremendous benefits for both team members and for employers. For us, cost savings, improved quality of life, sustainability, and productivity all go together. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Andrea. Demonstrating prosperity and sustainability go together. Iain, we are excited to hear what you've got to say about how we can increase sector collaboration in Ontario.
Thank you. So our organization, Communitech, was founded by a group of entrepreneurs 17 years ago with a belief that entrepreneurs can change the world. And that while we're investing in many important aspects of our society, our economy, that what we really needed to do if we wanted to try and realize potential and results from these investments was we needed to back the entrepreneur. And so for us, really the solution as far as our recovery path to growth is how do we exploit this tremendous opportunity we have to become the next startup nation. And so when we talk about entrepreneurialism, often it's case, at the governmental level that, this is something that's nice, and we'll get to that once we fix the fisheries or we fix the auto sector or we fix whatever. Well, we believe it's actually central. We believe it's the big opportunity that we have as a province and as a nation. We've got the talent, we've got the market access, we've got, in fact, privileged market access, as we heard today from the ambassador. We've got, really all the necessary ingredients to create the most successful homegrown organic growth economy on the planet. When we think about entrepreneurialism, I think a lot of people tend to start and end with, well, if we didn't have entrepreneurs, we wouldn't have Ford. And if we didn't have entrepreneurs, we wouldn't have desire to learn. And yes, they do create companies that hopefully one day will be big, and one day they will hire lots of people. And that's absolutely true, because you're not going to have any of these companies if you don't have somebody who's willing to bet the farm, go for it, and want to have aspirations and ambition to build something big. But entrepreneurs also play a bunch of other really important roles. First is that they actually retain talent. As we leak talent out of our community and out of our country, the one way that we can combat and compete with the big, incredibly attractive firms in the US is through entrepreneurialism. Not only people who want to start companies, but people who want to work for entrepreneurial ventures. And so when we think about trying to reverse the brain drain and retain talent, this is the one key way that we can do it. The other thing that entrepreneurs do is they help us to solve this commercialization riddle. And for years we've struggled with the fact that we make all of these investments into research, and yet we're able to not exercise the kind of ROI that we want off them. And what we've discovered and what we've seen is that innovation in a bottle isn't worth anything. You've got to break the bottle, and the way that you do that is through the entrepreneur as the catalyst. So they solve the commercialization riddle. The other thing that entrepreneurs do is that they help big companies innovate. And this is something we're seeing firsthand in Waterloo Region on an ongoing basis, is the fact that in many respects, the challenges that large corporations have is with the culture, the cultural constraints that get in the way of the ability to be able to think differently and to innovate. And entrepreneurs can help large corporations with that, either by working with them, by bringing them inside, or in outsourcing portions of the business to skunkworks teams. And the final thing that I think is really interesting, and it only hit me when I was in India this spring, is that it's really the power of the crowd, of 1,000 entrepreneurs that are going to solve the big world problems. It's not going to be Tata and Infosys who are going to solve the issue around potable water and transportation. It's going to be the entrepreneurs, because when you unleash a crowd of people who don't have constraints on a problem, they're the ones who are going to find the solution. So our approach to how do we continue to grow this economy is that we think it's actually staring us right there in the face. We think that the big opportunity is on backing the entrepreneur and having the next Startup Nation book being written about Canada.
It's terrific, Iain. Thank you. Now we're going to, finally, from John Baker, he's going to delve into the topic of how we can help Ontario SMEs increase their exporting activities.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. First of all, I'd like to thank the people that are in the audience. It's great to see Max from Laurier, Ferridan from Waterloo, Sarah from OCAD. It's also wonderful to see the business leaders like Kevin Lynch and many others that I've gotten to know over the years. I think a lot of the challenges that business face can be solved by us coming together and having these types of dialogues, working together to unlock what one industry is doing to help address another industry, or one company is doing to help address another company's challenges. And I just want to express my appreciation for all the work that you're doing to help connect the dots, if you will, and help spark the economy here in Ontario, but also across the nation. For us, I started D2L my third year of engineering at Waterloo. It was an opportunity to really take what technology was doing to every other industry and really apply it to education. And set it with a real simple mission: transform the way the world learns. And just like any student would. And grew the company from that. At that time, it was just myself, and I hired my brother, my other brother, my sister. Then I ran out of family. Then I started hiring friends. But today we're just over 800 people around the world, and really tackling this not just in universities anymore, but tackling how do we improve learning in K-12. How do we change some of the biggest challenges like graduation rates, or tackle learning experiences? But really importantly, we've also uncovered the fact that if we don't create a learning culture within government, within industry, we're missing the greatest opportunity for productivity improvement. In the past, when we used to think about how do we spark the economy, how do we improve productivity, It used to be invest in new infrastructure, invest in new equipment, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I still think that's very valuable. But another part of the knowledge economy is investing in our people and in workforce development, and it's certainly something that we're doing on a global scale, working with countries all over the world. We want to see more of that occur here in the province. For us, less than 10% of our business comes from Ontario, and it's not because Ontario is a weak marketplace for us. We're growing incredibly fast here. We work with a lot of different clients across many different sectors. It's just that the world of learning is just that. It's out there in the world. And so big markets for us are the US or Singapore, or Australia, or Saudi Arabia, or Brazil, and many other different countries. And so when we were starting our company, the biggest challenge was how do we go global as fast as possible? How do we get into the US market? A little bit easier than getting into Brazil, by the way. How do we tackle this global growth challenge so that we can continue to expand our business and really help not just our company grow, but help build an ecosystem around educational technology and really spark this next generation. And if I look at investment in educational technology, if I can coin it that way, back in the year '99, I can just say it was non-existent. And today it's grown to closing in on around $1 billion a year, but it's still a small fraction of what the world spends on education and on learning and on training and development. And there's a tremendous opportunity that I see in continuing to back entrepreneurs, building these really strong communities that connect entrepreneurs to other entrepreneurs that have solved these tough challenges, supporting the development of university to company interactions so that we can continue to educate people on IP challenges, on all kinds of other activities globally. And really importantly, unlocking that potential that we have in R&D within the universities, within the college sector, and be able to take that to market through innovative partnerships with companies all over the province. I also want to end my part of the panel on a couple things. One, when we were looking at de-investing, like slowing down our investment in 2008, 2009, a program came along called Next Generation of Jobs. And I just want to applaud whoever it was that came up with that idea. Because at 2010, when we finally got the signatures on the paper, we were 140 people in the company. And in less than 4 years, we're now over 800, well, we're 805 people in the company.
Oh, wow.
Our hope when we initially was looking at that program was to get to 220 by this time, just to give you a context of, we should have probably applied for a bigger amount of money, but we'll leave that to others. But that little bit of seed money really helped us at a very critical juncture in our organization's growth, invest at a time when others were not investing, which led to us really outpacing the market and really capturing a bigger opportunity than we probably would have if we were looking at the path that we were headed down. And I also put out there that we've also been running a little bit of an experiment, seeing what we can do in Waterloo, if I could take a little bit of that and plant it in a remote community where my parents live, in Bayfield, Ontario. And what's amazing is you see all these industries pull out of these small towns or out of these areas, and many of you probably come from communities where you've seen that happen. And I managed to talk to the EY Entrepreneur of the Year last year, and it was also inspiring because when you talk to him, you get to the sense that he's just really passionate about what he's doing, but what he's doing is selling yogurt. And his big vision was the yogurt plant shut down in this town, and so he said, well, I can do yogurt. And so he just said, well, I'll just do it a little differently. I'll make it with natural ingredients instead of like other artificial ingredients. And he built $1 billion sales business out of that just simple idea. And so backing the entrepreneur, no matter where they are, whether it's through organizations like Communitech or virtual mechanisms to really support them in their remote communities, is really critical. And so, so in my case, I took a small little hotel. By the way, you can buy hotels in small towns for a lot less than you can in Toronto. Jacked it up on beams, completely renovated it. There's wonderful fiber going into the building. I don't know who provides it. It must be TELUS. And you've got this tech company in this small little town that has now went from like 6 employees to now 40, on their way to 60, and is the biggest employer in that small little town. And if you asked any of the employees, would they be there if it wasn't for this organization, the answer was no. None of them would have been in the town. And you would have seen the town continue to spiral downwards as more and more businesses exited. So it's not the fact that we invested in a building or invested in the infrastructure. Those were critical elements. It was the fact that we backed an entrepreneur in that community that really sparked that development. And I would encourage all of you to maybe take a few of these lessons that the panel has shared and try to latch on to something to run with, because we could really use the support and really use the energy that the community in this room can bring to bear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. You know, two large companies, innovation, there seems to be an innovative spirit in the two large companies. Work that Iain's doing at Communitech, John's wonderful, wonderful entrepreneurial story. And that's been the theme of this morning. I mean, we are really recognizing that, you know, innovation is key to our success. Diane, first question to you. I worked for an American-based company. You work for an American-based company. Creating innovation inside a subsidiary. I always had a lot of fun with it, but I talked to some of my friends and they say it's getting a little bit more difficult. How did you create the innovation to create the success you did in the Canadian assembly plants and plants across the country?
Well, first of all, it starts with having really, really talented people and recognizing, certainly coming from the U.S. as a multinational company headquartered in the U.S., the differences, especially between Canada and the U.S., whether it's people or the processes that we have or how you ultimately create innovation. Yeah. But when it comes down to, you know, investments and what we need to do to support Ontario, this is where my biggest focus has been, because we've got a very strong manufacturing base in Canada, in Ontario today, but it's really being certainly under some fire with some very, very fierce competition that's happening just south of the border. And certainly, as I mentioned, our Oakville assembly plant, which we're so proud of, and making sure that we bring innovation to that plant. As an example, our Oakville plant will be one of just a handful of plants around the globe that will build for the world. So we will build out of Oakville Assembly today. We ship to 80 countries around the globe. And with this new investment we had in Oakville, we will basically ship to over 100 countries. Today, as I mentioned, we ship 40,000 vehicles to countries all around the world. 20,000 edges go to China. We have about 13,000 that go to the Middle East and about 7,000 that go to South America. But what's really exciting is the new edge we are building today in Oakville will have a right-hand drive and it will have a diesel, which is really exciting for Canada. And we expect we will basically export as many as 50,000 edges to Europe in the coming years, which is so exciting, and certainly much applaud to the government leaders that we have that really came up with a transformational agreement with the CETA agreement, with the Europe-Canada Free Trade Agreement, because it really allowed us that opportunity to make sure we leverage this really, really important investment that we made. So it really, to me, comes up with having incredibly bright people that know how to innovate, that always put innovation first. But again, I know we've got some of our government leaders in the room. They had to come together with us to make this investment happen. And I certainly know we have our labor partners as well. So Ford's a big company, but it's really important we come together as partners to innovate together, because truly that's where we're going to get the leverage, that's where we're going to get the scale and certainly the competitive advantage. And selfishly, it's a great opportunity because it creates jobs and creates economic spin-off for Ontario.
I know the auto industry has enormous spin-off, creates many jobs outside. Are you focusing, Diane, one of the questions earlier today was, you have these big companies get smaller companies involved, and are there ways in which we can do that better to bring up the performance of these smaller companies?
Well, certainly, it's a really significant opportunity for our supply base. For example, the Oakville investment that we have, that we made, created $200 million more for our suppliers annually because of that investment. Ford buys over $4 billion a year from Canadian suppliers. So and we have incredibly terrific, innovative suppliers, which is all part of the equation that is so key. So anytime you have an automotive investment, the spin-off for every assembly job is about 9 jobs from the supply base. So it's really, really key. So the investment not only attracts certainly the opportunity for a company like us to employ up to 4,000 people just in Oakville, but the supply base that can really take advantage of that and the economic spin-off is really, really key.
That's terrific. Andrea, we love the story that you told us. You're innovative not only in product development and services, you're innovative in how you manage your workforce, how you treat your people, how you develop loyalty. Tell me how all of this has come about, because you're looking at prosperity and looking at it in a very innovative way throughout the company. Can you tell us more?
Sure, that's a great question. When we look at our responsibility as a major carrier in Canada, we feel that we need to contribute not only on a business level, but completely on a very human level and on a community level. When we look at our values and who we are as a company, who we represent, we really feel that our contribution is measured in terms of the difference that we make in people's lives. It's not measured by necessarily how much investment that we've put into a particular area, but truly in how we have bettered the lives of our customers and our communities. So when we look at something like the investment that we've made in Ontario or in the rest of Canada, it's all underpinned by those values and ensuring that we're doing the right thing in terms of moving Canada along the digital economy scale. I'm not sure if people in the audience realize how much how great we have it in Canada as far as our telecommunications infrastructure. Our carriers in Canada invest far more than our European counterparts. In fact, it's 2.3 times more than the EU invests, and 21% more per connection than the US. So when you do travel to the US or to Europe and you seem to notice a bit of a difference in speed or in connectivity between your service here in Canada and the service overseas or in the US, it's because we have placed such a priority on ensuring that Canadians are connected. We also, I think, at times don't realize what a massive geography we have in Canada, and relative to other countries, how sparse our population density is. And so when it comes to a business like ours, where we are trying to connect across a wide geography and trying to connect the relatively fewer people that we have across that geography, it comes at an enormous cost. And as Canadians, I think we don't necessarily take advantage and talk about how great we have it here, because we do have it fantastically well. I think other countries look to us as an example and envy the connectivity that we've got. And so, you know, when I think about the passion that we've put into building infrastructure across the country, it is so that we can support business and government and improve the collaboration and the communication that all of us need to have to become even more successful at whatever it is that we're doing on a business, government, or community level.
Thank you, Andrea. Iain, I have a nephew, Aaron Tennant. He's in your program at Communitech. He's building a company, he's taking his MBA, just had a child, and has a full-time job. And quite amazing what's happening. So here is my question to you, because I've been to DMZ, I've been to Mars, I'm going to visit you at Communitech. Things are happening at my master's. Are we coordinating ourselves effectively enough across sectors to make sure that cross-sectional investment's being made in the communities that we're trying to build up in those incubators and innovation centers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of what we see happening is the result of the province's innovation agenda that was launched, I think, about 8 years ago, which really had this kind of big vision that said, we need to be making significant investments in these areas where they hold promise. And it was a big risk at the time for them to make this, and so we certainly applaud them for that. I think that really the wealth creation in our mind always happens at those points of intersection. It's not the fact that music or devices were new. It was the fact that Apple recognized the opportunity to really exploit that intersection between what is now wearable technologies and music. And so when we look at where we see the opportunities that will lead to the kinds of outcomes we're looking for, it is at the intersections. In the same way that when we see the kinds of people who are in highest demand, most innovative, greatest sources of entrepreneurs, they're coming from those courses that are at the intersections, programs such as systems design engineering or mechatronics or nano, is really those sort of points of intersection are where the value is created in the future. And that's what we're seeing as well as across industries, is that it really is it really is the fact that it's about what can be learned from one industry, but also what can be applied from one industry to another.
That's right. Terrific, great answer. John, your international strategy blowing us away. Only 10% is in Canada. What was having that global strategy when you said, I immediately wanted to do this? Did that make all the difference in the world when you started?
Well, I don't. Many people don't know our space. So when I started, if I went to a university to sell our software in Ontario, they were getting software for free. So I found it very, very difficult to sell anything. And then when I went to BC, I learned that I could sell it for and actually make some money. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I went to, and I said, well, where else is there a big market for learning? And I thought, well, the U.S. You got to remember, I was 22.
Yeah.
The U.S. seems like a good market, so went down and visited the U.S. And we actually won the entire state of Wisconsin in one visit. And it was the first time ever a state had decided to select a learning system for every university student. And so we thought this was good. Where else in the world can we go? And it was ad hoc. And I don't think that's the way that we should support our entrepreneurs today in an ad hoc manner, like where I just randomly go around the world and discover where the markets are. If I remember like entrepreneurship support in Waterloo, everyone talks about Waterloo as the hotspot for entrepreneurs, and it is. But when I got started, it was ad hoc. I was, you're going to do what for your last co-op term? I have no idea how to support you as an entrepreneur. Who's going to do your co-op evaluation? Those were the answers I would get. But today, it's like well supported by the universities, well supported by groups like Communitech, well supported. And if we can shift entrepreneurs from just randomly figuring out where the markets are to us having a really deliberate and really supportive network to support this global expansion, I think it's really important. Because I don't think entrepreneurs think today, I'm going to set up a tech company and it's going to be for Ontario. I don't know of anyone that thinks that way today. It may have been the case in the 90s, but it's not the case today. And so how do we support these little micro, to borrow a term from Iain, micro global nationals? And that's probably one of the biggest challenges. But if I look at our ability to actually serve the market, it's not just the U.S. anymore either. In our case, 300% growth is the growth expected in Asia. The U.S. is 3% growth for learning. And so I go, how do we get into that market next? And big challenges.
So inspiring to listen to you, John. So if you had the Premier in front of you, she was standing there. And
she's not here, is she?
She's not here, okay. But she may be here. But someone's going to tell her what your answer is going to be, though, tonight. Listen, this is what I need. This is what this sector needs. This is what budding entrepreneurs need to move ahead, to really build their companies locally and globally. What would the request be?
I would say more support for networks like Communitech to really connect the dots for entrepreneurs. So working with the universities to get, like for example, I took some business courses at Laurier when I first got started. That was awesome. If I could have design courses from the top design school in whether that's Waterloo or OCAD or others, I would gladly pull those resources together. But the more support, or CG, maybe another great example where it'd be great to give entrepreneurs the idea that they should patent their innovations right from the start, versus today's legal education tells you not to patent software. Those little basic things need to get resolved, but it comes from backing the entrepreneur and putting in place the support mechanisms to ensure that all the challenges that they're going to face as they go forward and build their company, they've got the right mentor network, and they've got the right resources, whether it's traditional ones like universities, entrepreneurs and residents at groups like Communitech, or peer-to-peer networks with other CEOs that have gone through similar growth in the past.
Terrific.